Have you had to slow down your ambitions in Asia, the pace of your expansion in Asia, and is that why you increased the dividend, to distract everybody from that?
No, not at all. You know, basically our whole Asian strategy is based, or you know, the super regional strategy is based on organic growth, and that organic growth we push as hard as we can. Obviously, if there were acquisitions around, if there were suitable targets, of course we would be very happy to look at those. Right now, there's just very little around, so the organic growth is the best option. But we continue to grow. I mean, we were growing at about, you know, between 20 and 30% across most businesses for the year, so that's not bad growth.
Mike, one of the things that came out of the commentary within your interim result was that within Asia there's been a shift in emphasis from traditional lending to other products and services. Is that a response to competition or perceived risks?
It's a bit of both, but I think that the key rationale here is use of capital. You know, banks have got to get much better at using capital than they have been previously. I mean, prior to the crisis, banks were generating 20% ROEs without really having to do much, because it was being driven by volume growth, you know, by that top line growth. And you've got to remember that since 2007, we're actually holding about 60% more capital on a like-for-like basis than we were at that time. Therefore, you've got to make your capital far more efficient, and you've got to manage it far more efficiently. Therefore, products and particular debt capital market, for example, the debt capital market side is obviously much more important to us now than it was pre-crisis. And the loans, which eat up capital, have got to become less important.
Do you have to have that much capital? Can you, I mean, could you get it back and still be above the requirement?
Well, you know, that's what we have to do. We have to be much more disciplined on using capital, and I think you've got to be able to flex it a little bit. You know, what we have done is tended to build it up in anticipation of needing it for regulatory reasons, and I think we've got to, you know, we've got to manage that much more tightly, be more disciplined around it. Quite clearly, the regulatory regime has not yet finished. In terms of imposing additional capital requirements on banks. But I'd like to see some degree of stability as we go forward. I think, you know, there has been so much change, and whilst Basel III was laudable for trying to create a global level playing field, quite clearly that hasn't happened. And now the fragmentation is probably worse as we've ever seen it, which basically means that national interests have taken over. And I think we have to be very careful that we don't get too far ahead of the game.